What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Boys. You're here for another episode of the Facts Project. Today, special guest. He almost has a residency up in this joint. So, Anthony Stokes, we are here to talk about Intrusive Thoughts, issue 2. Now,
hell yeah,
bro, I mean, for one, I got to congratulate you because this is now project number 5, 6?
No, hold on, decay. 4. This is 8.
In 1 year.
Oh no, for this year, yeah, this is project 5.
This is project 5. So I'm looking at it at the beginning of the year. I was like, man, I had to look back at all the interviews that I've done, and I was like, this is project 5. Okay. So kudos to you, bro,
Yeah.
man, because you've now completely expanded your palette. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying completely because there's still a lot out there. I mean,
A
you've
lot of stuff.
actually released a lot of things that you're about to be doing in the future. But to get to this book, the last time that we got to see Tyler, nope, this is a very mentally challenged young brother who has been going through a lot of bullying. And the last time basically that we left him, his bully caught up with him in the middle of the street and tried to shoot the fair one with him.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the demon that we saw surfacing in the first issue finally revealed itself a little bit more at the end of the cliffhanger of issue 1, which leaves us with Brandon on the floor, almost in a puddle of blood, and Tyler not knowing what the fuck just happened.
Exactly. Yep.
So where does this leave us now? Because Tyler now having this fractured mind and is continuing to now almost at the point where he's continuing to go about his life, but almost looking over his shoulder every 5 seconds.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot happens, and really, this one is dealing with the implications of this incident in the very immediate. It's the immediate aftermath, but this incident is going to have like major implications for Tyler and the universe itself, like real soon.
Yeah. And it's almost to the point where, of course, there's a revealing in almost within the first, I'm going to say 4 to 5 pages of issue 2. And we come to the revealing of the actual paralysis demon that is inhibiting Tyler's mind. And it's not what we expect, because we were looking at issue 1 and we started to see these shadowy figures that started to pop up in his dreams. One, he had that dream where in issue 1 where he got slashed across his throat and he felt like, he was getting killed in his sleep, and he woke up, and it was like that was almost like his mind fracturing just happening more and more. But yet in the reveal, it turns out that, he's not so sinister to Tyler himself. He's almost his protector.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, the conception of this series is really inspired by Satsuki Fujimoto's. He did Chainsaw Man, he did Fire Punch, a bunch of other stuff. And when you read this guy's work, he's all about being subversive and just keeping the audience on his toes. Like I think that's like the main thing, and that's what I wanted to bring to this series. I wanted something that would just keep people on their toes, keep them guessing. So, but also when you're making these hard left turns, it also has to be consistent with the logic of the story in the world as well. So, keeping that in mind, that was definitely like an express goal for this for this series.
Right. And inevitably, I mean, in all, you're looking at the demon itself, Tyler, but something is still hunting him. And is it because he's so unstable and that he is suicidal that almost it's like a version of death is haunting him?
I think it's like his mental state is reflecting reality essentially, or reverse reality. His mental state is coming out like so that's what's happening. So if he was really happy, then happy stuff would project, but he's depressed, he's anxious, so anxious and depressing stuff is projecting essentially.
Got you. And we and note the demon has a name. He decides
Yes,
to give him the name of Pez because of how big his mouth gets, and he looks like a Pez dispenser.
exactly. Yeah, which is like a fair, like one of my. I don't really get too much, and maybe this I shouldn't say it. I don't get too much of the to the nitty gritty of the names too
Yeah.
often,
Hmm.
but I thought that was for this character. I thought that was a good nickname, and I think like you need a strong nickname for a
Yeah.
character like this.
But Pez is ordinary. Like he's empathetic to Tyler. You know,
Yeah,
so he's showing him the true nature of his subconscious. He's telling him about how his mind works if Tyler
yeah,
had no idea how it worked.
yeah. You could think of Pez as kind of like the you could say like a guardian angel or somebody who's just like represents like his childhood essentially.
Hmm.
Like Pez is kind of juvenile. He's kind of like a kid himself, and that's what he represents.
That's what I was thinking. And even in the ways that he's talking to him and just because he's like the physical manifestation of his mind. And the fact that you took on the point of the creation of a demon being the total physical manifestation of his mind almost takes into heed is that if Tyler had good thoughts and had a positive attitude, would he be a demon?
Yeah, yeah. So they're got to play the cards close to the vest on that one because a lot of this is like revealed, not for this issue, but like for future issues and like kind
Mhm.
of the overall series reveal.
Yeah.
But those are that will be addressed for sure.
Mm, okay, got you. Now, necessarily, I mean, he's in college. He's trying to basically like get as much help that he can. He's going through detention. He's going through therapies. He just got into like probably the biggest fight he's ever gotten into with Brandon. Brandon's now in the hospital. There's so much happening, and yet he's still roaming around freely. It's not to the point where you have those cliffhangers where the the protagonist had something happen. So almost to where it's a setup. Brandon's laying there in the middle of the street.
Yeah,
So there's no police even though the police came, he didn't get arrested or anything. It was like, hey, my buddy got like one of my friends got fucked up after I had an
yeah,
altercation with him. And everybody thinks it's a bear. Some people think it's a shark or anything like that, but nothing particularly
yeah.
happens to Tyler.
Not yet.
Mhm.
Like I said, this is dealing with the immediate uh replications of that first issue. But that will become a big part of it later, very, very soon.
Mm. Now, overall, this series, like, of course, is a mental obstacle course in mental health, especially just in the main character itself. But inevitably, it's also taking on a resounding atmosphere of the people that are trying to help him.
Yeah.
So, in pinpointing like a lot of those side characters that are trying to basically like point Tyler in the right direction, how are you looking to like take on that portion to where it's almost like they're trying to have a controlled type of therapy with him, but it's that he's not accepting it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, anytime you have, at least I can think of, anytime you have any kind of conflict in a story, generally speaking, the character has to go through some kind of change. Oh my God, what is it? What's the word? It's like a scientific word, but I can't think of it right now. They have to go through some kind of change, metamorphosis to overcome the issue, and largely, it's either an external issue or they have to figure out something internally to figure out the external, and that's the case here. So they can guide him all they want, but essentially, it's going to be up to Tyler to fix himself. You
Right.
know.
Now, what is the significance? Because we saw it in the first issue and we see it a little bit more in this issue. He's had this globe with him, like almost like a crystal ball that he's had with him since the beginning. Like the first page of issue one is him maybe at like age 5, sitting
Yeah.
there with this globe. Now that it's fractured, it's leaking and everything like that. It might have been a snow globe because it's leaking a little bit of gelatin and it's still sitting on his end table. Like, is there a significance towards that one particular item?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the snow globe is more or less a metaphor for his mental state. So the split the split and the crack is what allows things to come out of his head, essentially.
Right.
So what stands out to me is I think of the Beauty and the Beast with the flower.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's like an iconic metaphor from my childhood, and I think it's like a similar sort of thing where the metaphor or the plot device changes physically, and then it has like I guess magical ramifications.
Mm. Now, also in that same effect, you know, you're taking on somebody here that basically Pez is explaining to him that his mind is very vast. And
Yeah,
the more that his mind becomes fractured, the more thing is it that the more things will be released into
exactly,
some sort of physical reality of what could take place inside of his mind.
exactly, 100%.
And that was almost like detailed like in this issue when he had the dream where he felt like he was drowning and he saw the waves. So,
Yes,
and he's asking Pez, was that real? He was like, yeah, it was. You made
yeah,
it happen.
it comes from his head,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, I mean, also it just, regular comic book shit. Somebody like basically conjuring up like a Green Lantern. They could conjure up anything that they want to, and it turns into that form. And you have somebody like him that's subconsciously doing it.
It's subconscious, yeah. So if he and that's where the term intrusive thoughts comes from. So if they're good, he can't control it, right? Or he has to learn how to control it. But if he were to think of something bad, which is what happens in this, then that bad thing could like come out of his head and escape and like rough some things up, you know.
So, how in this type of fold, like, is Pez becoming like this protector? Like, is he ultimately having battles within Tyler's mind, and anything that gets released that can harm him, he feels he needs to kill.
Yeah, so I mean, if you follow the logic or if you follow his theory, is that if Tyler dies, then Pez will die. So I think
Right.
it's self-preservation on some level. And like you said, Pez is very see Tyler as like a friend. You know, really the inspiration was like Calvin and Hobbes in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's some other. I think Venom is a good example as well. Kind of like an inspiration. Death Note
Yeah.
with Ryuk. So you know those dynamics are different, but I think like at its core, it's like this kind of magical kind of high concept being that helps and hurts the protagonist in some ways.
Right. And inevitably, I mean, the biggest thing is like, I guess, from the reader, from my perspective, just like basically like going through these past two issues, in order for Tyler to like come in some sort of like safe space, so where he can actually be on his own, like he has to work his way throughout these problems. There's no way that he's
Yeah.
going to be able to do this. He's been suicidal. He's been, somebody that hasn't had the capabilities to live a normal life because of his past. And the thing is, that's also a tidbit because we don't necessarily know a lot about his past.
No, you don't, and that's definitely gonna come up. That's definitely like the core of the story is like figuring out like what happened, what were the circumstances, and how do we get here? And then once you solve that, like all right, we can start to fix this.
Mm. Now, as far as like just basically being a mender and everything like that, as far as like Pez is concerned, how is it that he's able to basically play housekeeper for so long and he hasn't been released at any point in time until now?
So if you remember, that's a good question. So if you one or he's had these issues since since he was a kid, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is the inciting incident more or less is two things. One is Brandon. Like Brandon's causing extra stress. He's physically punching him, and as he's punching him, you see like
The
the
the cracks.
you see a crack. And also, what happened the first issue is he's starting to apply for colleges.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have once you turn 18, like he's lonely and depressed now. But imagine we talked about this. Imagine when you turn 18 and now you don't even have you don't even have like the foster parents that don't even care about you. You don't even have them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the stress. It's almost like the stress of adulthood is coming in, and that's, I would say that's really what's the main thing. And then Brandon is kind of like the thing that pushes him over the hill. Like it's like the last straw, basically.
Yeah, and even with the events that happened that day prior, the second that basically he has a chance to sit down after basically he's in detention and they're telling him to basically look at the book, the shadows start to arise. So is that something that leaked from his mind as well?
Yeah, he drew the picture in the first issue, and then he looked at the picture in the second issue, and then it started like he projected it, or it appeared in his head, and then it
Mm-hmm.
came out of his head. Yeah.
Now, there's of course another big cliffhanger at the end of this one because it Pez is a physical manifestation, so you can physically see him. But
Yes.
it's ultimately, I guess, set in stone that he can be revealed at any time. It's not somebody that's like an imaginary friend to where he's not
Mm-hmm.
being seen or anything like that. It's not like Tyler sitting there talking to himself, but we can see it on the page. He's an actual creature live, like just harping around in public to the point
Yes.
where he gets caught, because of the actions that happened in the school that day. I guess by what was it by the principal?
Principal. Yeah.
Now,
Principal starts to suspect some stuff.
right, and the thing is, I guess this is somebody that's been trying to help him in the long run now, and of course he lied in saying that the demon was something that he created. He was just doing some shit for art class and everything like that. But ultimately,
Yeah.
seeing this thing move for the first time and understanding the actions that might have happened to Brandon the day before, how does this all start to just be constructed?
Yeah, I'd like, and this is a guy I like. He's like, it's a art class, but it's clearly a math class, which is
Right.
definitely something we. Yeah, like I said, this is gonna be all of the rest of the series is the implication from like what happens at the end of this issue. It's very much like it's very plot focused. I mean, it's very metaphorical, but it's also very, very plot based on like, all right, A and then B and then C and then D. It's got like a domino effect, more or less.
Mm-hmm. And almost, I guess, at the same point, it's like the more that gets revealed is probably going to add more added stress onto Tyler, which
Yep.
then whatever's fractured is going to become completely broken. And then also, almost at that end, is Pez going to be the one that like has to fix things, or inevitably it's going to be like, look, I can't do any of this shit by myself. Tyler, you got to help me.
I mean, yeah, like I said, Tyler's gonna have to figure it out for himself, and I feel like that's I'm not a therapist, right? Like, and truthfully, I haven't been to enough therapy, and I do believe that these things can help, right? Like people have traumatic childhoods and stuff like that, and that's unfortunate. But at a certain point in your adulthood, you kind of have to take. I mean, theoretically, I'm speaking today. I'm leaving myself some room, but you have to take accountability for your mental health.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And that's what I think that's what it's about. And like like therapy, like exercise and all that stuff. That stuff can help, but I think ultimately you need to want to fix yourself, and that's what's going to have to happen.
word. And I'm looking at it as like, is is somebody that just necessarily, instead of trying to attack the problem all the time, is he somebody that necessarily needs closure into what has happened to him in the past, or is it something that basically he has to throw away in his mind?
He's got to figure out the past. And he's got to reconcile the past to
Hmm.
get through this, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and now you were saying before, now you've never been to therapy, so this is something like that's new to you, but you've taken on the topic of mental health.
I've been to therapy not enough times, but I've been a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Like so, not as much as I should.
Yeah,
Um, well, we all go through the sad reality is that everybody goes through mental health stuff, but not everybody has access to a therapist. You know what I'm saying? Like
yep.
it's a sad reality. So yeah, no, I mean, I think all of my books are more or less about mental health. I think this is the one where it's like, depression, anxiety. You're putting a words to it,
Hmm.
but the K was about grief. Um, Capra Die is about grief as well, and anger issues
Hmm.
and rage. God's what that is about. Like a lot of similar stuff. So I mean, it's all mental. I would argue most plots or a lot of plots are about mental health, but this is one where you're pointing and being like, okay, this first scene is about therapy. It's the child's intrusive thoughts. It's a more on the nose, I would say.
Yeah. And then you almost like get a chance, like, say, if you ever got the chance to actually talk to somebody about how your mind works,
Yeah,
like if that was an actual thing, like if you had no idea how you were hardwired, but yet there was somebody who actually lives there who could tell you all
yeah.
about it, you know?
Exactly. I think also while like I said, Ty needs to fix himself. I think friends can help with your mental health a lot. Like friends. I think a lot of times friends can be a big part of that. And like, hey, maybe he just needs a great friend. Like
Hmm.
maybe that's all it's missing as well.
True, true. Now, of course, I mean, we could talk about it because you've talked about it a few times. This collaboration and such that
Yeah,
you've been working on, and of course, been plotting on with Mr. McKelvey and Mr. Moses, uh,
yeah.
where you've decided to basically like form like Voltron and put yourselves out there to where you feel like you want to start a Yakuza book.
Yeah, so this was a wild process, and truthfully, this is like one of the best experiences of my life, my career, of my life so far. I'm obviously super close with Moses
Yeah.
and McKelvey. We, anytime. I mean, McKelvey actually lives like only a couple hours away, so I see him. I see him like every other month, once a month or whatever. We talk a lot. I was talking to him earlier. I talk to Chris every day. Um, so Charlie is showing me some image of a guy holding up a cup, a black dude holding up a cup with a sunrise story. Like,
Okay.
all right, that's hard. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. He DMs me and Chris. He's like, yo, I got something for y'all. I want y'all to write this. Me and Chris are like, yo, this sounds lit. So me and Chris, we get in the lab. And Charlie, and part of the reason why it was great was that Charlie gave us directions for the first step, kind of like, all right, here's a bunch of plots. You could do what you want, but here's my suggestion. And just stay the fuck out the way for like the rest of it. It was like really cool. Me and Chris, and then I mean, it was like smooth. It was so smooth, man. Like he gave us it's 100 pages. He
100 pages.
gave us it's 100 pages. This is just a trade or no, trade paperback.
Yeah.
So big boy. So we had 100 pages written in like 3 months. Like we were just banging it out. Because we talk every day anyway, so it was
Right.
easy. We just banging it out, banging it out, banging it out. And so he's like, all right, who do y'all recommend? And me and Chris have worked with a lot of the same artists, so we recommend Damiano Restivo, who is incredible. He's a crazy talented artist. He never phones it in. Every panel he's gone for it. Every panel he's trying to make it as good as possible. He gets my friend Fabi Marquez to do coloring for a cover, which was insane. Gets I don't know, I think it's Zine Mart, Zheanh Mart. I don't know the pronunciation, but she did the type of die cover. She did a couple covers for all of it, like collectively.
Hmm.
And then he gets you have kind of like the up and comers, I would say, like me, Restivo, Chris, and then he gets the colorist from Invincible. I can't remember the guy's name because I'm tired as hell, but he gets the colors from Invincible to do the colors.
Oh shit.
So it's like the Voltron thing isn't wrong. I mean, it's really, in my opinion, it's truthfully like a dream team, really. And I think it's truthfully like an incredible book. And there's a lot of good shit in that book. Like we
Right.
we we really brought the best in each other, and I think this is gonna be one of my best looking books, and I think it's gonna be like incredibly well written. It's like super fun, something completely different from what I've been doing. Right, like
Okay.
it's like lighter in some regards, it's darker in some regards. Like I wanted something that could be anything. I think like going forward, I want to make stuff that's genreless, and this definitely fits. Like it's a little, it gets crazy.
Now, being somebody who, enjoys the way that you write, and you've done a lot of things singularly, you know what I'm saying? You tend to be on your own island where you're able to write freely. The the,
Yeah,
the act of collaboration, you
yeah.
and Chris going back and forth. How does this work?
Like when I said we talk every day, we literally talk all day. I talk to Chris more than I talk to my girlfriend. Like I talk to him way too damn much. So it's there, and then we just both know as well. We have a respect for we talk some shit, but we have a massive respect for each other, and it's also like a good balance of knowing when to be professional. Like, all right, when do we have to button down and kind of like knock knock things down, or and then a lot of times it feels like I'm just shooting the shit. I'm just we. I was I was I was I want to tell the story. I can't, but we a lot of shit talk. A lot. I can't even get into it. I can't get to it. But
Right.
a lot of shit talk is really fun. But really, it's just about. I think what I also appreciate about Chris is that Chris will say no, or I'll say no, and then we can be convinced. Like you have to, I'll make an argument. I'll say this. So, one of the characters, his front for his business is a sex shop, and he runs like a brothel, basically. And then so, we're like, yo, what if this guy, well, what if he's getting a blowjob? What if he's getting a blowjob he's at work? I'm like, oh man, but we can do something. Yo, what if he's getting his ass ate? And Chris is like, what the fuck? I'm like, nah, bro. And I just wear, like I am pounding the fucking table and I am making an argument. And Chris folded, like it ended up in the, but
Yeah, I
he
was like,
listened
wait,
to,
you having like a full-on argument between either getting a blowjob or getting tossed.
get tossed. Cause I was like, to me, toss is more interesting. Like we've seen that. Like let's not lean on our first thought. And I think the scene would have worked, but I think it works better. I think it's more off kilter. I think it's more like it's just more interesting, frankly. And like I said, Chris was against the idea, and then I made a good argument, and then Chris was like, all right, cool. And then so when I never feel as if, because not every idea I have,
Right.
a lot of the times I find myself when it's like I alluded to in a relationship, it's a boss employer relationship, it's like whatever. I am like the idea go 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 guy, and like I need to be reeled in. So I don't get offended when my ideas get rejected if there's a good reason, and if my idea doesn't make it in, either we compromise or it's like, okay, yeah, I can totally understand why this didn't work. Or even like a lot of times we'll just reconstitute the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the main thing, especially like when it's I don't want to say it's vague, but I mean the title's long as hell, but essentially like Charlie gave us carte blanche. So
Yeah.
it was like, all right, we gotta figure out like what is this thing really about, and in that we threw out a lot of ideas.
Okay.
And like I said, I felt like my ideas were heard, and that's all I need, really.
Well, to be honest, knowing the both of you and having a chance to actually like have conversations with the both of you and getting a little inclination of how both your minds work, I don't feel like there's anything ever off the table.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
nah,
like
for sure.
no, it's like a smorgasbord of shit. And it was like, okay, obviously you can throw this in there. Yeah, throw that in there.
Yeah,
And we can make it
that's
work.
how it should be.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, once again, nothing's ever off the table. So it's like the way that you guys have had the ability to procure stories, even taking shots at the fact that you've had the ability to add, like, NSFW stuff into, like, whether it's bits and pieces of it, or maybe in full on, like basically what Chris did with I Summon the Demon just recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty tame. I'm reading some of this stuff that he's written to me, and that salad tossing shit is tame, like in comparison, bro. He
Yeah,
was
compared
bugging
to what
out.
he just
That
done,
shit,
compared to what he
yeah,
just
that shit
did.
is nothing.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's almost out there like, okay, if we got to make this work, like it's almost like we can't just give everybody the pizza. We got to give them the crust too. Like, you
Yeah,
got to have the crust of the shit. You're not going to really understand the story if I just give you pizza and some sauce.
yeah.
You know, this ain't
It's a
gonna
crazy
work.
metaphor.
So like this gotta understand it. That's just gonna be the way it goes. But the thing is, even in the midst of this, you guys are writing constantly. Stories
Yes.
are coming out in boatloads. So it's almost to the point where are you like interchanging stories, like you feel like writing this today, and then I go and I'm writing this tomorrow, and then I'm writing something else like the next day. Like, you don't get confused by this shit?
No, so I to your previous point, yeah, I think like I like where me and Chris's stories are headed. Not we have our own individual story. We have collabs and we have our own stuff,
Yeah.
but I feel like you're seeing, us hit our stride. And like, I've had the luxury of being an editor on I Summon the Demon, and it's crazy. It's a crazy world that he's building and stuff like that. I think the stuff that I'm working on is you're really going to see like phase two of what I got working on as well. So I'm really excited about that. And then I always do this. I'm sorry, you said something. What was your very last question?
No, I was just saying, like, you're not getting confused by
How do I
all
keep
the
it
projects.
organized?
Yeah, like, how are you keeping organized? All the projects that you're doing, like, how do you not get confused by some of the stuff, the headspace that you have to be in for certain books that you're writing? And then if you're doing
Yeah.
multiple projects at one time, nothing kind of conflicts with the other.
I mean, bro, you're a parent. I feel like that's way more complicated. Like I feel like anything
Absolutely.
I feel like that's way more complicated, more complex. Like for me, I think I've gotten really good at compartmentalization. That you have to,
Yeah.
right? So I'm gonna look at my board right here. So Tapper Die 2 is the next big release.
Okay.
I'm not worried about Intrusive Thoughts issue 3 in this moment. You know what I'm saying? Like two is getting funded. I gotta worry about Tapper Die 2. I'm more worried about American Yakuza. So it's like if you just make a list of priorities and you just, it's out of sight, out of mind. I mean, it's just kind of how I work anyway. Like I'll put a premise in the back of my head. I this is something that people commented on. Like when I have a premise, I almost I'll make it come with something that makes me laugh, and then I'll just keep. Okay, I got another bit, and people will be like, "You got to come with the story eventually." I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, but this is the fun part." So I'll file that stuff away, and then I get enough for something that will happen to me. Like there's been times where I'll be missing a story beat to continue with something, and I'll have an interaction, like a singular interaction, and then I just go.
Mhm.
So you get good at it, but you have to do that. I think people psych themselves out with a lot of this stuff, but really I mean, it's life. You got to compartmentalize. It's life. Like that getting to work on time is more important than making breakfast some mornings. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so that's what it is. I think people psych themselves out. Does it get stressful? Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
for sure it gets stressful though. Like I'm not gonna lie, but that's why you just have to put some stuff to the back burner. That's
Yep.
as simple as you can make it.
And also in the same breath, I mean, you're working in comics. Like most of it
Yeah.
is a visual medium. So like you're creating the story by what's supposed to be seen. And there might even
Yes.
be just a little bit of dialogue, like a little bit here, a little bit there, sentence here, sentence there. I might give you like a piece of a paragraph, but I want you to see what's exactly happening here. So I have to describe in such. It's not as much as I'm writing like this full on story, like I'm giving you this Bible.
Yeah.
Like I'm giving you descriptions, at most, and then you just follow along with me.
Yeah, and something also that I do is to at a point I do want to work on stuff that I find fun. Like if it's a tiebreaker, right now I'm enjoying Tap or Die a lot. You know, I just wrote Tap or Die, the issue 4 script, or I'm working on today. I got some other stuff. It's just whatever feels right. You know, I also try to write. I try to write a little bit a day, but I also don't push myself. You know, I think I've been writing for a long time. You know what I'm saying? I've been making comics for 3 years. I've been writing for a long time. So I I've outgrown a lot of the writer things. You know, like the writer like, oh, I need to like organize everything by writing it down. You know, I need to get a MacBook to
Mm-hmm.
like so you can see me. I need to type in public. I need to like take a picture of me thinking really hard at my laptop. It's like, you know what? I did that shit when I was 18 years old. You know,
Right.
I'm 30 now. You know, I
Mhm.
don't have to do the writer ready thing. You know, so I just skip over a lot of the minutia.
I can tell you a personal milestone that the episode that we did for Tap or Die is actually one of the most downloaded podcasts that we've ever did. It's
Really?
probably the most down. It still gets fucking downloaded to this day, like a lot.
Wow.
Yeah,
Hell yeah. Okay, we gotta do another
yeah.
one.
And I was like, damn. I was like, maybe because like in the bio we talk so much about wrestling that people think
Yes.
it's a wrestling podcast. Like I actually named it Rock Bottom. Like that's what I
Yeah.
named it because of basically how the cliffhanger is. And I was
Yeah.
like, people are probably thinking that we're talking about wrestling the entire time
Yeah.
without even thinking that we're talking about a comic book.
I'm glad, and I'll tell you, I went to a con. I went to Baltimore Comic Con, and I had a couple people tell me like, "Oh, I heard of Tap and Die. I saw that." I
Mhm.
was like, "Okay, you might be making some moves. Okay, okay." You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? This give me all the motivation I need to keep writing. You know, that's
because I
crazy.
mean, if you think about it, you're actually speaking from the perspective of probably one of the most, I guess, popular sports entertainment, you know, things that are out there, whether it's WWE,
Yeah,
WCW, AEW, NXT, or anything like that. People really fucking love wrestling. I remember how much I
yeah,
loved wrestling as a kid. So to even
yeah,
just hear the introspective tales about wrestling, like that movie that's about to come out, A24 movie about the Von Erichs,
yeah.
people that just saw the trailer are not ready for about what they're going to see because they have no idea
Ooh,
about that storyline. Because they saw the trailer and they
that
was like, "Oh, it's just about wrestling." I was like, "You have no idea about the Von Erichs."
reminds me of Foxcatcher a little bit, which I enjoy. I enjoyed that a lot.
I enjoy Foxcatcher. That's like one of my
Yeah,
favorite movies.
underrated.
So, like, literally, if you see this trailer, you're like, "Oh, it's just a wrestling movie." Not
Yeah,
with, not with this at all.
I'm
Dope,
excited. You just got me excited.
dope.
Hell yeah.
Well, bro, I appreciate you doing this with me. Uh, Once again, as always, Intrusive Thoughts is live on Kickstarter. Now, no, you're not going the same route you did with I wish the guys were all dead, where you basically gave us 19 days. This is going to be up there for a little bit. You got a whole month.
I hit the wrong button on the launch. So that shit was like that shit would have ended like in a couple weeks if after me, but you know we doing good. You know
Uh,
I just gotta get my. This is a worst case scenario, like because you want a short campaign to deal with the dead zone,
yeah,
and it's whew,
and
boy, this
it's
told me
going
I need to like a
to be a
vacation.
minute. He said I hit the wrong button.
I don't get the money for like 2 months, man. So
Oh,
yeah,
man.
but
Well,
it
look,
is what it is.
I'm sure it'll be in our hands in no time flat. At least this one's going to probably like hit by the end of November. Word.
We'll
But
see.
look, well, bro, once again, thank you again for being here.
Hell
Intrusive
yeah.
Thoughts 2 is live on Kickstarter right now, so please go out there and get that. Shout out to Anthony Stokes, Grandmaster Facts here. Uh, See us live on YouTube. Thank you for everybody for being here, and we are out.